Well, coming off the back of the COVID era, there are lots of people who are trying to, I guess, hold people accountable is the best way to say it. Some people want to move on. They just want to say, hey, the COVID era is over. Let's get on with our lives. Some people want to live in fear. We're hearing from the government right now, oh, there's new strains, there's new variants that are going around. We should all start wearing masks again. And then in the middle, there's this group of people that want to hold those in power accountable. And for what my opinion is worth, those are the people that I like to talk to. And one such person is a name you might be familiar with. It is Dr. Melissa McCann. And if you're familiar with her name, it's because she launched a class action, in fact, the world's first class action to hold people accountable, to hold those in power accountable for vaccine adverse events, adverse reactions. And yes, we're going to talk about it. This could be a segment that gets us cancelled off YouTube forever, but we're going to take that risk because this story is that important. I have Dr. McCann with me right now to bring us an update on the court case. Dr. McCann, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Topher. Pleasure.
Let's rewind to before COVID, just so that people understand. Who is Dr. McCann? You're up in the Whitsundays, beautiful part of the world. You've got the Great Barrier Reef just off the coast there. I was in the Whitsundays, in fact, just in 2021. Stunning part of the world. Who was Dr. Melissa McCann pre-COVID?
Well, pre-COVID, Topher, I was and still am just a lowly GP up working in a rural, beautiful rural area. I've been here for about 12 years now. A mum, a wife, I have a clinic in the Whitsundays, and certainly never would have pictured myself in doing something like this.
Look, there's a lot of people who would say the same thing. The COVID era brought out the best and the worst in a lot of people. I would say it brought out the best in you. But before we get to the court case, what was your initial response as a doctor? Obviously, all the experts, the government experts, the medical advice, the people that we should be able to trust, all came out saying this is terrible, this is awful, this is going to be a disaster. What was your initial reaction when you heard about COVID-19 in those very early days?
Oh, to be honest, it was complete fear, and I don't think any of us were immune to that. I don't think I've ever seen the medical profession as afraid. Some of the first messaging actually that came out through social media channels and through the news was, rates of deaths of up to 9% in Italy were being quoted, and there were these horrific stories of doctors who were catching COVID, themselves dying, bringing it home to their family members. So. It was something that was and was for a very long time taken extremely seriously. And I guess there's so much that could be said about that. But in a nutshell, we were modifying the way that our clinic operated. And for a lot of the time, that meant phone consultations or seeing people in the car park, or having to sort of close the doors and have people ring up before they came in. So a lot of things that interfered with, I think, ideal care, certainly. But at the time, thinking that was the right thing to do to protect our communities, to protect our staff, our doctors. And so that was really, I guess, the first feelings. And then the next sort of impression and feeling was, thank the vaccine, initially very enthusiastic about wanting to participate in that, initially put in expressions of interest to provide the vaccine, to my whole community. In the end, I only played an extremely limited role in that, and I actually ceased to provide any vaccines once there were mandates. I just have an ethical problem with that. But, I certainly never expected to be in this position, and really didn't start to have any concerns apart from the mandate issue, which I guess I have a conscientious objection to. But it was just more once I started to see adverse events, that was when my whole attitude, I guess, changed to all of this.
Yeah, so you now, obviously, you're leading a court case. We'll come to that in just a moment, but I want to dwell on your your progressive response as time went by. There was something that made you switch from, hey, yeah, this vaccine, this might be the answer, this might be the thing. What was it that you saw? What was the data that you saw? You mentioned adverse reactions there, and again, we're going to get ourselves cancelled off YouTube here. But what was it that you were seeing that made you change your approach and your attitude?
Yeah, well, I guess really started to become concerned about adverse events in about October. So it was early October when the mandates were
Which
first
year? This is
announced.
2021.
21, sorry, end
21,
of
yeah.
21. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that was where I guess vaccine uptake in my area really started to pick up,
Hmm.
and and it was coincident in timing with that. So in other words, soon after that, that people were coming in and having um, literally everything from chest pain to miscarriages, several strokes,
Wow.
um, blood clots, and it was just saying over and over again, like, could this have something to do with the vaccine? I had it 3 days ago, or I had it a week ago. And,
Sure.
you might hear that once or twice and think, possibly, just sort of make a mental note of it. We better make
Mm.
sure a report's been made, etc. And then that happens, a few more times, and you think, wait a minute, this cannot be, statistically, this is impossible. I'm in a
Yeah.
small rural community.
Yeah.
How on earth can there be multiple people with myocarditis? It's not possible.
It's extraordinary times, and the data. I mean, you look at the work of people like Ed Dowd over in the US as he's just analyzing data worldwide relentlessly. The work of people like Naomi Wolf as she's analyzing the Pfizer papers. I mean, it's quite an extraordinary time. But coming to your court case, there is a difference between a doctor who says there's something wrong here and a doctor who says, I'm going to put my name down and be Johnny on the spot. I'm going to be the one uh, responsible for a class action court case. What was it that brought you to the point that you were really willing, if I can use a crude expression, to put your balls on the line over this court case? What brought you to that point?
I mean, that was a slow progression that
Mm,
probably really started with my observations, and then another couple of colleagues coming up to me and just saying, look, should we perhaps consider a practice audit? That they had also seen several cases of myocarditis.
mm,
And so, and of course, being mindful the whole time at this point in 21, I mean, it was in March of 21 that we had the statement from APRA that was very clear.
yes.
And I've got to say, that was listened to. I mean, APRA has a real history of, I guess, coming down really strongly on doctors. And so this wasn't something that everyone just sort of, oh, okay, we better be
Sure.
careful what we say, but we can say what we want to each other. That's just not the case, because with APRA, there's something called mandatory reporting, which means that
Mm,
if a colleague if a colleague witnesses another health professional doing something that's outside of the code, that person has to report that colleague.
mm,
Now, so then that means that everyone is extremely careful about what they say in case another health professional, misinterprets that, or thinks that they maybe have to make a report or something like
wow.
that. So there is a
Wow.
absolutely a strong dampener on free conversation about what everyone was seeing. But I was still hearing enough behind closed doors and what I was seeing from patients that I just felt so strongly that something had to be done. And I guess I felt like I was in a position to do that, like
Mm,
just in terms of, where I was in my career, where I was in my family, that I thought, you know what, whatever it takes, this is unjust. And also, it's only because of my patients that I am in a position that I'm in. I mean, I came, yeah, but came from nothing really. I was the first
yeah.
person in my family to finish high school, let alone go to uni. And I thought
Wow.
the only reason that I'm even in a position of, working in a practice and having a practice and is my patients. And so that's what matters. That has to be my first concern. And if that means if that means risk to my career, I just felt that actually that was wrong anyway. And I'd rather go through that process and challenge that with APRA, which I'm actually having to do now,
Mm,
because I felt that what I was doing was in every way consistent with the code of conduct. So that was
wow.
what my thinking was when I started it. And then where that actual process of starting it was seeing all of these patients with injuries, having all these roadblocks to compensation. So roadblocks through work cover, roadblocks through the compensation scheme. And so I just came to the opinion that I thought, actually that the TGA had a lot of responsibility here. And so then I went through the next steps, which is engaging a barrister to provide an opinion on the arguability of a case like that, and then working with the legal team
Sure.
to actually put together the class action.
Well, Dr. McCann, there is a massive difference between people who say someone should do something, which you've discussed in detail now. I mean, you were looking at it going, there's something wrong here. There's a difference between someone who says someone should do something versus someone who says, I'm going to do something. And I applaud you for being the latter, the person who says, you know what, I'm going to do something. The court case that you're running, for those that maybe have never come across it, they've never heard your name, they don't know anything about the case, what is the court case? And what, if you were to be successful, what are the implications? What are you trying to achieve here?
So it's a federal class action. So that means it covers everyone in Australia who's in the class. And the class in this case is everyone with a vaccine injury.
Right.
And what the class action is seeking, what it's seeking is compensation for the injury. So medical expenses and economic and non-economic losses, essentially. And it's against the TGA. So the TGA, and I should say more specifically, so John Skerritt, as the former head of the TGA, of course, Brendan Murphy, former head of the Health Department, Paul Kelly, Chief Medical Officer, and Greg Hunt, the former Health Minister.
Wow.
So that's who it's against. And what it alleges is that the actions of those parties who had responsibility over approving the vaccines, ensuring that they were safe for the Australian public, and then monitoring the vaccines for adverse events, that what it alleges is that their actions in all of those processes was negligent or misfeasant, and that's led to the damages or the injuries of the class.
So what's the timeline here? Obviously, it's been some time since this class action began. Some people, they want instant gratification. They think it's a Hollywood movie. We should just be able to watch for 90 minutes and see the happy ending. What's the reality of the timelines of what you're working on?
Well, they say most class actions run somewhere between, say, 1 and 4 years. So we're almost 1 year down. I don't know. It's hard to say if this one would take as long as 4 years. I think we'll certainly see some more progress, I would think, next year. So this year, a lot of it has been sort of negotiating, I guess, in a way between the parties where they can request extra information on the claim, and then into early next year. And a lot of this is on the federal court website under the class actions, that some of the next steps that the other side can take, and they have foreshadowed, and that's on the website, that they may take these actions, such as a application to strike it out, or for a summary judgment, or for a cost security, things like that. So those are the things that will be happening over the next sort of few months, and then depending on the outcome of all of that as to what the next steps might be with it. And it is, I feel extremely impatient with it in a way. I feel so worried for all these people, because you can imagine, as this process has gone along, there's I won't say exactly how many, but let's just say well over 1,000 who've sent in their stories, their medical information, and some of these people are just so unwell. You just think, I just wish this was over today, and these people could get the care that they need, get the compensation they need, so that because right now is when they need it. But they're an amazing group, and I've heard them say, these things, even them sort of reassuring, these things take time, and basically let it all stack up, because in fact, the longer it's taking, there's actually an increasing body of evidence that will support this claim. So I guess that's the positive side of it taking this time.
Well, look, not that my situation is equivalent. I have not been injured in the same way that many of your the people in your class action have been, but it took 2 years, and literally just the other morning, the Victoria Police withdrew their criminal incitement charges against me. That took them over 2 years to do on something as simple as criminal incitement charges. So something like your case, if it's only had a year to run so far, unfortunately, there's probably quite a long time to run. I say that with no pleasure. I mean, justice delayed is justice denied. That's a saying. It's a truism, but it's true for a reason. If someone wanted to support you and to help you in that court case, where would they find more information? Where would they find you? Where could they support you?
Well, the class action website is www.covidvax, That's got information on the action. It's got a link to join, so that the action is still open and people are joining every day. So there's just links and things like that is on that page. There is a link on that page to our crowdfunding platform, but that can also be found at No More Silence AU, nomoresilenceaustralia.com. And so the action is being run purely on donations, with no person, should it be lucky enough to win, no person who's financially benefiting or taking any percentage from this whole matter is being run for the injured. So that does mean that it runs on donations. So if anyone can support it, that's amazing.
Well, this is one of the incredible things that you don't trumpet, Dr. McCann, but I'm going to trumpet on your behalf. If there were litigation funders involved in this, they would take a huge chunk of whatever payment came out of the other end of it. You're not doing that. You've actually put yourself at risk, and you're not standing to gain anything out of this financially. So I've just got massive respect for what you're doing. I do hope that you'll keep us posted. Anytime there's an update, please, there's an open invitation for you to come back on the Aussie Wire News, give us an update. But in the interim, Dr. Melissa McCann, thank you so much for coming on the Aussie Wire.
Thank you so much, Topher.